You are listening to The Ron Shaw Show on the Artist First Radio Network. Out to your host, it's Mr. Ron Shaw.
Welcome, folks. Welcome to The Ron Shaw Show. I am Ron Shaw. Tonight, my guest is a Michigan poet. In fact, he's a two-time first-place best-selling poet. His name is Richard M. Knittle, Jr., and he is, like I said, he's from Michigan. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Thank you very much, Ron. How you doing today?
Oh, a little bit off my game today, man. I hope you don't mind. It's been a rough day, but it's been a long time for me and you getting together on the show, you know.
It has been almost a year, I believe.
Yeah, we talked over a year ago, and folks, a little bit of background of what went on. I met Richard over about a year ago, and I wanted to be on my show, and he was having some problems with basically what he writes about a lot, but he was having a few problems, and we had to postpone his show, so he's on now tonight, and I'm just sorry, Richard, it took so long to have you on, but I tell you what, why don't you tell everybody, tell us about you, tell us what you want them to know about Richard M. Knittle, Jr., all right?
Okay, well, this last entire year, I started writing about a year and a half ago, poetry. I've always liked poetry, but I never really wrote anything. I was fighting for my son, Ryder, who my first book is an epic poem called The Battle Lost, Ryder's Birth. And Ryder's not my DNA, but I've been fighting for him for this last year. I raised him until he was about 18 months old, and actually won 5 weeks ago in Parker County, Texas, rights to see him. So I will be in his life now for the rest of his life, which is awesome. So I started writing, and I wrote an epic poem called The Battle Lost, and it just took off. It hit number one about 10 different times in about 4 different Kindle categories. And from there, I just kept on writing and fighting against PAS, which is Parent Alienation Syndrome. And it's taken off from there. My second book I released about 50 days ago, and it was in the top number one for about 2 weeks, actually. And it's still in the top 50 in family poetry. I also have a next book coming out here real quick in about 3 weeks. So it's been a wonderful time. I've been enjoying my life. It's been good spending time with Ryder also.
So what's the title of the one coming out in 3 weeks?
Well, the last book it was called Out of the Darkness, A Poet's Journey, and it was a lot of dark poetry about when I was fighting for Ryder and PAS, again, Parent Alienation Syndrome. The next book is called Into the Light, A Poet's Journey, and it's kind of more love poems, more religious type of poems. I've always written about today's problems, like homelessness and addiction. I have a lot of addiction poems because I was an addict at one time, and I've been on both sides of the fence, so I can understand it quite a bit, actually. I've gotten a lot of feedback from those poems because I hit pretty hard, and I don't hold back anything. I bring today's issues to light, actually, is what I do.
Well, tell me a little bit about before you started writing now. And then get into the writing. Tell me a little about your life before. You said you have, been a.
Well, I've got
whatever. But go ahead. Tell us about you.
I've got 3 honorable discharges. I was in the Navy since I was 17. Went to the Army for about 4 years. Then went back to the Navy. So I have 3 honorable discharges. Through that time, I've been in IT. Computers. I've always loved computers. That's what I've done my entire life. When I was about 23, I saw rodeo, and I'm from California, Los Angeles, actually. And I loved it. So I got up on a bull and absolutely loved it, and actually went pro for about 7 years in PRCA out of California. Had a great time. And then from there, I actually did IT for a little while longer, and about 15 years, and moved to Texas, Fort Worth area about 10 years ago. And that's when it all started with meeting this young lady and the whole addiction thing. And finally just walked away from it actually on my own without any help. And that's when we had a little baby. And again, that was my fight for my son, Ryder, who I love very much. So it's been wonderful.
No, wait a minute. Let me back up a little bit. Pro rodeo?
I rode bulls for 7 years as a PRCA bull rider. Yes, I did.
Wow! Now that how many injuries you get doing that? Goodness gracious!
Knock on wood, I was very lucky. God blessed me with the ability to move real fast. I mean, I've had some cracked ribs and some major bruises, but I really escaped major injury by seconds. In fact, my last rodeo was at with the Great Western Forum in Los Angeles, and it was one of those rodeos where if I would have stayed on that bull, I probably would have went to Vegas at least. And, at that time, I was doing it for about 7 years. I was talking to all the buckle bunnies and signing autographs and just not even caring about the bull at all, not even afraid of the thing. And as soon as I got on there, he opened up, went to the left instead of the right like I was set up for, and I got hung up and spun around for a little while. And it took them a while for them to get me off. At that point, I was actually wearing a vest for the first time ever that I ever rode. For some reason, I just put a vest on, and I got stomped on right on my middle of my chest. As soon as I was up and out and able to walk and remember where I was at, I said, I'm no longer afraid of that bull. It's time to retire. So I stopped. I stopped riding back then.
Well, then, okay, so I hate to dwell on this, but Vegas, that's the big show? I mean, if you make it to Vegas, is that it? The big?
Vegas is like the Super Bowl or the World Series for rodeo.
Oh, okay.
That's where all the money's at. Right.
All right. Well, okay. Did you make a good living at it? Was it good money and stuff?
Not really. Not really. Not at all. I did it starting for fun, but then I started getting pretty good at it. I won some here and there, won a little bit of money, but I wasn't into it full time where I was traveling through the United States full time. I would be on the weekends or, one or two during the week if I could. And but like I said, it was more to see if I could. Through my whole life, it's like if I wanted to try something, I've always tried it. And I've always at least made it. I may not have excelled in it. I've been 100%, but at least I did it. I mean, I got to say, my bucket list by the time I was 40 was pretty much full. Writing was not even on my list. I never even thought about writing a book or even poetry or anything else.
What year did that start then? When?
That happened as soon as I started writing when Ryder was taken. I'd raised him for about 18 months, till he was 18 months old, and my ex had some issues, and she came back to my home, and then she took him and went back to East Texas. Well, I didn't see him for a year. I didn't know how much, what I could do because he wasn't my DNA, even though I raised him. I thought he was my son. And I started writing. It was my way of healing. I mean, as far as writing and poetry, that comes from deep down in your heart and soul, and what comes out is helping you to heal. And what I found out was when I started writing and I started posting it, it was healing other people too. I mean, I was getting phone calls saying, wow, that, what you wrote was amazing, and I understand, and thank you for that, and it's helped me, saving lives. I have one called Demons, which is my, when Robin Williams passed away, I wrote it, and it's called Demons. It's about depression and PTSD, which I do suffer from both. And it gets very difficult sometimes, no matter how good things are, how happy things are, that depression just comes around and grabs you, pulls you back. So I write a lot about the depression, again, PTSD, a lot about addiction, a ton about addiction. In fact, most of that first book, even though it's an epic poem, which, by the way, was actually voted number 13th all-time greatest epic poems at Goodreads.com.
That's amazing. That's great.
It really was. And it's just the way that I write. I'm able to put my emotion down. People that read it say it's very hard for them to read, even though it's only 27 verses. They have a hard time reading the whole thing through.
Well, when I first met you, you sent that to me.
I did.
And I got it, as I recall, I got it pretty late at night, maybe, 11:30, something like that. And I was going to go to bed, and I said, no, let me go ahead and look at this. And I opened it up, and I started reading. I couldn't go to sleep until I was finished.
Right.
I mean, it is that, it's that powerful. It is. It's, and that's The Battle Lost, right at birth, right?
Correct. And it's actually been in the top 10 on Kindle downloads for the last 5 months. And actually, if people would like to, there's a free version, which is the original version, that can download for free for Kindle downloads or any other apps for free at Amazon right now.
Well, tell me a little bit about now. I've very much enjoyed the epic poem, the poetry. I see and feel you all the way through it. You were literally writing. I mean, it was just personal. It's everything. You were just poured it out, and it just went. I couldn't. What I'm saying is, I went to bed late that night. And, I first started, and I said, wow, wait a minute. Now, the artwork or the illustration, whatever you want to call it, that you have throughout the book is fascinating to me also. Who did the artwork? Did you do it?
No, I didn't do the artwork. A friend of mine by the name of Allison E. Ott, who was living on the streets at the time, I saw her artwork. I kind of knew about her, and I knew that she was an artist. And I thought, this might be good. So she knew about Ryder. She knew Ryder, actually, when I still had him. And she actually decided to, use some of her art into the book. And it's very abstract, but very, very, it's almost like it was meant for the verses as came out. So when you get the special edition, that's where the art's at, it's in the special edition, it actually matches with what you're reading.
Oh, it does. It does. I know. I thought that. And the art, to me, was incredibly dark. It was disturbing to a degree. There was nothing about it that everything was tilted a certain way.
Right.
What I'm saying, it was disturbing art, because what you're writing about is that too. To you, of course, and you could tell. When I was reading it, it's very, very powerful. It is. It's excellent. But when you're finished with it, I just felt totally kind of just, I don't know, worn out with feeling sorry for you. You know what I mean?
But getting tired, and I hear that quite a bit, because that was, like I said, that was kind of my feeling to get out. I woke up one day and started writing this, and I feel like God gave me a gift a year and a half ago to fight for my son, to fight against addiction, to fight PAS, again, parent alienation syndrome,
right.
And I've been writing ever since. Now, I do write a lot of dark. I write a lot of love poetry here lately too. I write a lot about God. I write about the world we live in today. I write whatever comes to my mind, and I'll be driving down the street, and all of a sudden, bam, okay, here it is in my head, and I got to stop and start writing. Now, the very first verse in that book, called "The White Flag." And I wrote it when my ex was actually in rehab, and thought, because I didn't understand what addiction was. I never knew what addiction was through my entire life. Never. I drank some, but it was on the weekends or whatever. But never really understood addiction. And since then, I've actually gone to school. I've got my degree in psychology with an specialization in addiction to understand it a lot better. Because I'm not an addict myself, I guess I would be considered I forgot what they call it, but I never lost a job, I never lost my kids, I never went to jail, never got a ticket, never did anything wrong. I paid my bills, did what I was supposed to do. And so I wrote one called "The White Flag," and it kind of explains maybe, where I was at with it. And that's where it started, actually, with that poem. And from there, it just went on to become a whole story about from the time my son was born till he was 10 months old when they did the DNA test, and they pulled him away from me screaming and crying. And I kind of gave up a little bit there, had a little mental breakdown. And within about 2 months, I said, I'm going to go see where he's at. And then I was back in his life again until he was 18 months old. And then he was gone for a year. And again, I just started seeing him again about 5 weeks ago. And it's wonderful because he remembered who I was. After holding him and singing "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" in his ear, he grabbed it, and it was awesome. It was
I've been, me and thousands of other people have been pulling for you. You know that.
Oh, I did. There was thousands and thousands around the world.
Around the world, I know. And we were, and I was following every phase of it. That you'd let know what's going on. Of course, all those folks, and we were all pulling for you. And I'm so happy it's turned out this way. And this would be a perfect time. You want to read something from the Battle Lost?
I will. In fact, I will read. What I'm going to read is "The White Flag," only because it's the original.
Okay.
The very beginning kind of explains where I was at. And it's called "The White Flag." We both have our tissues, or we both have our issues, we know that for sure. The boxes of tissues don't hide the obscure. We got married so fast and you were so young. I should have known better, for that I feel dumb. The dumbness I feel is not for you, but my ignorance of addiction that no one can cure. That evil that hides and festers till free, that's born from the devil's very own breed. It knows all your weaknesses and hides all your fear. It changes your thinking, I know this, I swear. The evil inside you was born long ago, while my ignorance of it let it grow and grow. The strength that God gave me held back its birth, while the war we were waging was hell on this earth. My wars of the past were easily won. I fought with my knowledge and the use of a gun. The wounds I inflicted were healed without pain, while this war I am waging drives me insane. The battle I fight is mine all alone. The darkness that spreads, it's evil unknown. My body is dying and my mind is a blur. It's an evil disease that goes on with no cure. The battle is over when valiantly fought. I laid down the white flag, its trap I was caught. I fear for the children and others not known, for the evil is spreading its destination unknown. While war will continue with no heroes found, the evil name addiction will always be around. And that was the original poem, the very first verse.
Yeah, still, man, very powerful. Wow, that was now you also do stand up, right?
Well, I don't do stand-up per se. I go up on stage, and I've been doing that for about a year since all this started. In Fort Worth, in Dallas-Fort Worth area here, we have a very huge, I'd say probably one of the biggest poetic places in the world. I mean, we have spoken word, we have poetry, and I've been up on stage doing that every Tuesday night, and now every Thursday night. And we'll get up on stage and do poetry. Sometimes I'll throw some comedy in there a little bit, but I'm not really all that good as a comedian. Some people say I'm a smart ass, but more than all is more of the poetry. So I do get up at least weekly and perform some of my new poetry, and we get with a bunch of other poets that I've been friends with for the last year. It's been awesome.
Well, okay, wait a minute. Where'd I get this Michigan thing? I thought you're from Michigan, man.
I don't know. I was going to ask you about that, too.
Where did I get that?
I think I've been through Michigan one time, so maybe that might work.
Why in the world? Where did I get this Michigan thing? Okay, folks, Texas. You're from Texas. Okay. I must have printed that wrong on my schedule sheet months ago. Oh, God. I'm sorry, Richard.
Hey, no, that's fine.
All right, you're okay, folks. Richard Evans, he's in Texas, y'all. Okay, Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm actually in the Fort Worth area. Yes, I am.
Fort Worth area. Okay, well, hell, there's nothing wrong with Michigan, but you're from Texas.
And people are, they're more than welcome to come out and see us, me and many other poets on Tuesday nights at the Doc's Bookstore, which is in Fort Worth. And now downtown Fort Worth on Thursday night, we have Poetry Under the Stars at the famous Houston Street Bar. We do open mic and poetry out under the stars. It's beautiful on Thursday nights, downtown Fort Worth.
Well, that would be a lot of fun.
It really is a blast, and the people that I'm with are high class, always good. Mike Gwynn, who's my mentor basically for this last year and a half, really taught me quite a bit on being on stage and stage presence and actually just everything. I do a lot of stuff for spoken word, which again, I'm not a spoken word poet, but the spoken word poets that I do know and are out in the Dallas-Fort Worth are just absolutely amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. I'm pretty much straight poetry, or you want to call it political religious poetry, maybe. And when I say religious poetry, I mean by the fact that, again, I believe God gave me a gift a year and a half ago to start writing to help people, and that's what I do. And in fact,
we talked about that a little bit. We talked a little bit about that. Get into that some if you don't mind. If you want to, it's up to you. But
no, that's fine.
Tell us about that. Tell the folks about that.
So I wrote a lot about Ryder, about missing Ryder, about my letters to Ryder, things like that. I wrote a poem called Hope, and this was about 6 months ago, about the time when I started trying to figure out what was going on with me inside and getting all these signs from God and these things that were going on in my life, and I had quite a crisis going on there. So I wrote one called Hope, and it's called Hope, a Prayer for Ryder, which I'll read here in a minute because it really kind of goes to show you where I was at. I wrote about a park. in where Ryder was born. And him and I used to go every single day, several times a day, and we go sit on a bench, and we just sit there and sing and play. And that was our thing. I wrote that poem. It went really well. People absolutely fell in love with it. And I went to take pictures at the park. Well, on the cover of my second book, Out of the Darkness, there's a bench there, and there's this light. And what it was, as I was sitting there by myself, I started hearing things in my head, and I was smelling sweet things, and it was crazy. It was almost like a out-of-body experience where, and that's why I tell people angels are real. I believe I was visited by an angel, and I know who the angel was. And I was told that I would see Ryder again, and that God is listening, and that there's other things going on. And that's when I finally got peace of heart in my inside. I kept being told that there's a spirit that's inside me that just wants to get out by several different people. And finally one day, I was actually walking down the street. I was crossing the street, and a car came straight at me, out of control. And I closed my eyes and thought, okay, this is it. Sorry, Ryder, I did try. And there was witnesses that all wrote everything they saw down. And all of a sudden, I close my eyes, and I hear all this screaming and cars, cranking. And all of a sudden, I open my eyes, and the car was about an inch from me. And I thought, wow, was I lucky. And I was shaking pretty bad. And a woman came over to me and said, can I shake your hand? And I said, lady, I'm shaking all over. Just grab on all over. And she said, what I saw was amazing. I saw a light come from out of the sky, go into you, you glowed, and the car stopped. And I thought, well, it's lunch. Maybe she was drinking.
yeah, maybe so. Maybe she had a few, yeah.
Well, I didn't have any idea. So I go in, and I was told by somebody at work that, who are you? And I said, I'm Richard. I'm doing IT work. Anyway, so they said, you have the Holy Spirit that lives inside you. I've never seen anything glow as much as I've seen in you. And I thought, what is going on here? And it was like at least a half a dozen to a dozen times during that week I was hearing that from people as I was writing. And finally I started speaking with, some priests and some other religious people that I know, and finally figured out that God was trying to get a hold of me, that he was giving me this gift to write and to keep on writing. And that's what I've done. And, helping others with their fight for PAS, for depression, just so they know that they're not alone. And I started getting more and more people on Twitter, and I think I'm about 30,000 followers right now on Twitter, actually.
Yeah.
And, it's just things like that. So I've accepted the fact that God gave me this gift. I accepted God into my heart finally, which I really never have in my life. And my life has been very, very well since then. Peace of heart. What I mean by peace of heart is I wasn't worried about going to court anymore. And, in fact, we went to court a week later, and that was when the judge denied their motion to remove me as Ryder's father and said, we wanted to go to trial. And I was very calm. And so finally, a month later, we went to trial, and the judge ruled in my favor, giving me non-custodial parental rights. I don't pay child support, but I'm in his life, first, third, normal non-custodial parental rights through summers and everything else for the rest of his life. So that was a miracle, because in Texas, if there's a DNA father, he shall be deemed as father. So I thought I was done, and I wasn't. God helped me fight a battle for love against hate, and love won. It was amazing, very amazing.
Yeah, now I'm looking at that cover you're talking about, Out of Darkness, the darkness, and I see that. I've seen it before, but that beautiful glow, that light is lighting up that bench, just like the whole bench. The light's coming down on it. And
that picture has not been. That's the way it came out of my phone, my camera, and I have 7 other pictures that came up to that light. It was actually, you could see the light starting to transmute and to come up, and that was the finished product. And it was amazing. It's an amazing picture. It is. Wow. It really was. And the thing about it, I had just written Hope and A Prayer for Ryder, and it was almost like, wow. I mean, just absolutely wow. And I tell you what, let's do. Hey, I tell you, after the break here, we'll do a few little things and come back and read Hope after the break. Will you do that? I will do that. We'll hold on. And Z-Man, you want to go ahead and do that thing?
Come on down to brandonwise.com and join us in the pursuit of creating some incredible movies. Be a part of the journey as we set out to make a mark in Hollywood. Enter the mind of Brandon Wise through his books and weekly blog on going from gang leader to screenwriter. We'd love to interact with you too. Join Brandon on Twitter, search one Brandon Wise, or come to his website at brandonwise.com.
Hi, Ron. Thanks for having me on. MercerPublications.com recommends a great new series of how-to books for authors and publishers. Very popular, how to write sentences and paragraphs in your novel, $1.29. One writer said this:
"This book has put me back on track so that I can concentrate on what I do best, tell my stories."
Go to Mercer, M-E-R-C-E-R, MercerPublications.com. See our bright blue ad on the Ron Shaw pages on ArtistFirst.com. See you later.
This is Annie Acorn. Nothing on TV? Try My Murder with My Darling. Not your average date night out. Disclaimer, I do not accept responsibility for anything Bonnie Lou says. Her story is available in print for Kindle, Nook, and Kobo e-readers, as well as on iTunes. For other offerings, visit me at annieacornpublishing.com/publications.
Times are tough, and we are all trying to stretch our hard-earned dollars. Sounds impossible, right? Well, it's not. From the single parent to the military, even hard-working families, there is a little something to be had by all. From the US to Japan and everywhere in between, Jen and Sam are bringing you the best coupon savings and free daily giveaways. So stop by Couponing for You on Facebook or Twitter to get in on the action. From their homes to yours, they are working hard to help everyone. Couponing, the number 4, YOU, one of the best saving sites on the web.
You are listening to The Ron Shaw Show on the Artist First Radio Network. All past broadcasts are available as free downloads. Check them out at artistfirst.com. Back to your host, Mr. Ron Shaw.
Hey, thank you, Z-Man. We're back. I'm back with my guest tonight, poet. He's an epic poet, Richard M. Knittle, Jr., and he's in Texas, folks. Richard, hey, before we had to break, why don't you go ahead and read the poem Hope? That's the title of it, Hope?
It's called Hope, and it's Hope, a Prayer for Writer. Okay. And it's when towards the end of the fight for writer, because I really kind of thought that I wasn't going to win. That it was going to be too what's the word? It was just a fight for nothing. That's where the battle loss comes from. That's my Twitter name is. And let me write it right here. Here we go. It's called Hope, a Prayer for Writer.
Okay.
I was sitting alone in the park one day at lunch, and I sat on the same bench where Ryder and I used to play. We would sing our song and laugh and pray while letting the world go by. Those were bright and sunny days with just him and I. Then as I looked up, it hit me. I was staring right at the tree where I carved out our initials for everyone to see. So I got up and looked, but all the tears that were now falling was hard for me to see. And then I found them, and it read, I love Ryder, and Ryder loves me. All of a sudden, I got a sharp pain in my chest, and I fell hard to the ground. It hit me so hard that it knocked me to my knees. I looked around and saw that everyone was watching, so I threw my fist up in the air. I lifted my head up to God, and I screamed as loud as I could, why me? Why would you bring him into my life, knowing how much I would care? I gave that little boy everything I had left to give in my heart and in my soul, all my strength that I had left to give. Don't you understand? He was my reason that I'm still here, my only will to live. I hate you, God. That was not fair. And now I live with all these memories that play over stuck in my head. No, not like a dream. No, now my life is nothing but a living nightmare. And then I hear Ryder's little voice calling out to me, and I say, Ryder, I'm right here. And I look around, but nobody was there. Then in a whisper I say, I'm sorry, God. I didn't mean what I said. I'm finished here. Please take me now, because I'd rather be dead. I hurt so bad every single day from a heart that's broken it will never heal, and a soul that is dying and can no longer feel. He is my son no matter what they say or do. Ryder's my little bundle of joy, and I miss him so very bad. I'm so damn tired of hurting from all this sorrow and regret. I'm so lonely and sad, and looked around and cried, and I sobbed. And then I remembered God had a son once too, and Jesus was his name. I thought he did understand. Right then I felt his hand as he placed it upon my head, and I felt him as my heart filled with so much love. He wanted me to know he was listening from his home high above. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. And I opened my heart and I let him back in. Today I still hurt every single day, and I still cry for my son Ryder. But now I know our Lord that is in heaven above is watching, and he'll let me see him one day, because it's our destiny, our fate, either here on earth or high above at heaven's gate. And that's what I now pray every night before I go to sleep. In his name, amen. And that's hope.
Oh, that's sweet, man. That's something else. And that's at the bench there you're talking about.
That was the bench I was talking about. 2 weeks later is when I took that picture, and everything just started filling up into my head.
So what do you got? What do you have planned for the future of your writing? What are you going to do? What do you look down the road? What you going to be doing?
Well, I will continue to do my poetry, and I'll continue to release it. And like I said, my next book's called Into the Light. That'll be out in about 3 weeks. I also am actually writing my first novel, and it's called Out of the Ashes, A Father's Love.
Yeah.
And it's going to be about the entire fight for my son Ryder from the day he was born till today. And because there was a lot of things that happened in between that, a lot of fighting with my own demons, again, depression and PTSD and addiction. There's a lot of people that came into my life that helped me get through it. And the fight for Ryder itself, the legal maneuvers that we had to use, again, to fight it, because during the time we were fighting for Ryder, the judge ordered them to go find the DNA father, which they have. And, there's a lot of things that went on with that also. So, I just had him this weekend. In fact, I had him till like 10 o'clock last night. It was awesome. And next week I'll have him for about 45 straight days where him and I will really get to know each other again and get back to us. We have a very special bond, him and I. And I know I have 3 other boys also, who 27, 25, and 19. And he's my youngest. And I also have a grandson that's about 6 months older than Ryder. So I have all boys. It's been fun. But that's what I plan on doing is writing. I enjoy it. Out of the ashes, a writer was born, and I will continue to keep on writing.
Well, what now? Okay, so you're writing a novel, and we talked a little bit about it last time I talked with you, but big difference writing the poetry and the novel, no, isn't it?
It is, and in fact, as I'm writing the novel, and I'm getting chapters going through there. It's the way I write. I'm writing as a poet. I tell people all the time, I'm not a writer. I'm a poet that writes.
Okay,
so,
I got that. I understand.
So there's going to be poetry in the book also. Of course, that's just me. I don't think I could release a book that didn't have poetry, because that's just the way I think. Poetry, for some reason, to me, comes very, very easy. And, there's no rhyme or reason of it. A lot of poets will write with their emotions. If they're sad, they're going to write sad poetry. If they're happy, they're going to write happy poetry. With me, since the epic book came out, in fact, there is a part 2 that I did not release yet, but will be released, that finishes up through today with Ryder. I didn't release it because I went ahead and speculated on the last 2 verses, and in those verses I didn't get Ryder. So it was very, very sad, kind of a goodbye, leaving a legacy for him to find later on in his life. So I'm actually rewriting those last 6 verses as we speak. And what I'm going to do is release it all as one big book. And that one's called Friendships Lost. So that'll be released here pretty soon also.
Yeah, no projected date in mind, just pretty soon, near future.
I say pretty soon. I mean, I work on it every day, and I really want to make sure that when it's finally released, because I have to check on some legal ramifications too of what's in it, because I do write about my ex, although it is not really. The book can really be taken as fiction. And in fact, I've gotten so many 5-star reviews out of that, and that's what people come out of it. It really could be taken as fiction if you wanted it to be, even though it is based 100% on the truth. So, and the second book was a lot more darker, a lot more intricate with the characters that were in it,
yeah.
and which was, you know, her and her family. And so I'm having to go back and, I guess you call it a crisis of conscience, is what I have now with the piece of art. So I'm making sure it is as good as the first book. In fact, it may even be better. But it is a lot more darker. It's a lot more to it. But right now, with my other poetry, it's been coming first for some reason, and I've been pushing out probably 2 to 3 poems a day through everything that I write. It's been amazing. I myself am shocked sometimes. People will be around me. I'm like, hold on a minute, guys. I have to pull over to the side of the road and start typing out. And because if I don't, I'll forget about it, and then it will really upset me. And then when I get home, I'm like trying to remember these things and just can't do it. And as a poet, as it's flowing through your mind, it's the time to write it.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. So,
what do you foresee in the future, though? Do you foresee in your future?
mm-hmm.
I know with depression and PTSD and all that, and the past addiction, and the addictive personality, maybe, okay, disorder, maybe the brain, the chemicals or whatever. But do you foresee in the future of your stuff is inspirational and is filled with hope, but it's a dark kind of a hope and inspiration. It's sort of like out of the ashes, the phoenix will rise. But do you see in the future maybe some positive things coming out by you? You know, some uplifting, some... You know what I'm talking about.
I actually do. And in fact, it's funny you say that because this next book, which is called Into the Light, really doesn't have any dark poetry in it at all.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It'll actually have some love poems, and one of my very first poems that I ever wrote that was actually a love poem is called Me and You. And that one really has kind of opened people's eyes because they were like, if you ever write love poetry, you know, you're going to be really good at it. I'm like, I don't write love poetry.
No. Wait a minute now. Hold on. You don't come on my show, put up or shut up. Read that poem right now. How long is it?
No, it's real quick, and it's called Me and You.
Okay. You're going to read it for us right now. I want to hear it.
All right.
All right.
Maybe one day on some warm midsummer's night, on a blanket under a full moon, I will create a new poem, and I will write it on you. I will start in the center of your beautiful body, and I will profess my love with nothing more on than my poetic verse between us. I will be writing roses are red and violets are blue between your beautiful bare breasts, watching them as they rise and fall with your each and every single breath. Next, I will write I love you as I slowly come up from behind you. So with every stroke of my pen, you will remember that day and into the night from the beginning until the very end. I will then start with a brand new verse, and it will read that you will always have my heart on the back of your neck, and I will move in a little closer so those words that I will write onto you, you'll never forget. Then as I hear you start to moan in a poetic adulation of ecstatic sighs, I will feel as you start to hesitate, but by that time it will be too late. Because those words that I now write will find that path down below through the middle of your naked back, and I will continue, as my words will now start to transform into a story of how our souls have come together, just you and me, so you can see how much that I do love you. I will then write more about your beauty and what your love has done to me, a beautiful masterpiece that I will soon write. As those words for my love will turn into a painting as if I am Leonardo da Vinci painting in the Sistine Chapel, or Vincent van Gogh on our starry night. Yes, when we are together on that midsummer's night on a blanket under a full moon, I will create a new poem, and I will call it the story of me and you. There you go.
Oh, get out of here. The women are swooning all over the place over that one. You know that. You're a single guy, right? You're single, right?
I am single.
I bet you have to have a baseball bat to beat them off with. I guarantee you after that one.
Well, you know, I've actually been enjoying where I'm at, and
that one was full of innuendo, Richard.
It really was, yeah. And that's not, you know, there's another one called Soulmates and Searching, and For Every, which is, you know, another one. One of the ones I would like to read is called Angels Among Us, because, you know, as I said, I do believe in angels, but I do believe in angels here on earth too. And, you know, you have nurses and you have doctors and you have, you know, teachers. You have all kinds of people that are angels. And I kind of look at angels as the ones that actually need the help the most. You know, like, just real quick, let me do this.
Hold on. I was going to tell you. So yeah, do what you want to. Because my guests, when my guests are on my show, this is your show, man. So go ahead, read it, dude.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's called Angels Among Us. Angels do live among us, and they may be anyone we meet, from the man down at the grocery store to the soldier who'll never admit defeat. The little girl who has cancer, the type that doesn't even have a cure, to the little boy with autism who shows his unconditional love for sure, to the lady next door with the bruises who says she only tripped and fell to the ground, to the little girl in the bedroom who was told never to make a sound. Angels do live among us, and they may be anyone we meet, for God has chosen his people whose souls can never be beat. From the homeless with mental health that nobody wants down in the cities, to the police officer protecting children and walking his beat, to the mother of 3 little children who's just trying to make it through, and to the man who brings food to their table, out of work, with no money, so they could eat. Angels do live among us, and they may be anyone we meet. Look around, look inside. Those angels may be you, or they could even be me.
That's sweet. Hey, let me tell you, that's beautiful. You know, I majored in English Lit in college, and
You did.
you cannot love English or English literature and not love poetry. You just can't.
You can't.
Because, you know, that's one of the top rooms in the house. Poetry. It is. I remember even in high school, I used to love poetry. And college, oh yeah, I loved it. But lately it's been more reading, novels and such, and fiction, nonfiction. But I always love a good poem. You write beautifully, Richard. I love it.
I appreciate that very much. Like I said, it just came to me, and for some reason, a year and a half ago, it opened up. Now, I was told by somebody from back in high school, they said, I really love reading those letters you used to write to so-and-so, one of my ex-girlfriends from high school. I've never seen anything so sweet. I guess it's always been inside me. And I always tell people, I was asked, how do you learn to write poetry like that? And I tell them, I don't think you can learn. I think poetry is in every one of us. It's just the key to unlocking it is the answer. Something's got to trigger that key to get it out. And it's usually something very dark or depressive. You see a lot of people with depression and into themselves writing about that. Addiction, you'll see people writing about addiction, things like that. But I believe that, poetry comes from your heart and deep in your soul. And that's how it comes out. That's why I don't think poetry should ever be judged. I don't know how you can judge a piece of poetry that comes from someone's heart and soul, because that would be judging them themselves.
I know, and when I was reading your poem you sent me, the epic one, when you write, does it just kind of just pour forth? It just comes flowing out, onto the screen or the page. I don't worry about any commas, any periods right now. Just get it out. Is that how you do it?
It does. In fact, for me, it just flows. And in most of my poems, like I said, I'll be sitting there, I'll be standing there, or someone will say something, or I'll read something or notice something, and all of a sudden it starts hitting in my head, and usually it starts out with a paragraph, the very first sentence. And then all of a sudden it will just start flowing out. And that's when I start writing. And I'll write on a piece of paper, I'll voice do it, or I'll type it on whatever I can do it just to get that first verse out. Because if I get that first verse out, then it's in my head, and I'll remember it for when I get home or when I can write it. And in fact, sometimes I'll have 4, 5, 6, 7 half poems going on at any given time. In fact, on my Facebook page, I've opened it up for everybody, which it is public. I use it as a workboard. That's where I usually write most of my poems, is on Facebook, as one of something I'll put out there, and I'll even put working a new poem or whatever, because a lot of people will start looking at it and go, wow, this is awesome, and then I'll finish it off. And what's neat is to see a finished product within about 5 or 10, 15 minutes. But most
is it under your name at Facebook, Richard M. Knittle Jr.?
It is under Richard M. Knittle Jr. For Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn under Richard M. Knittle Jr. My Twitter is at the Battle Lost, TheBattle Lost, and in fact that is my website also, thebattlelost.com.
Okay, now let's see. I think I got a question for you here. Oh, let's see. You want a question?
Sure.
Oh my gosh, an author I know wrote me, and it's not a question as much as it's a comment. said, wow, Ron, Richard is gifted. I feel it. Very emotional interview in such a spiritual way. Cannot put it into words. Wow, I'm in awe.
Wow.
That's pretty neat right there, Richard.
That is very neat. I'm very passionate about when I talk about the poetry, and I'm very passionate when I talk about, again, parent alienation syndrome, which is trying to be brought out. And yeah, I love children. I love my kids, and I just think that all parents should have the right to their children. And DNA does not matter when you love your child, and that's something that we did prove this year. Again, we fought a battle of hate and with love, and love won, which was simply amazing. God gave me this gift to be able to write. God gave me the gift to get that out to people, and I've lived my life on social media for the last year and a half, so people know who I am, intricately, whether my good days, my bad days, depression days, PTSD, whatever you want to say it. Also, with the Chris Kyle Band, actually has my demons on their website, which was a big honor for me, of course. And I get to read that quite a bit to different military personnel. They really can understand it quite a bit. And having someone with PTSD and clinical depression has helped so many people because it shows them that they're not alone, for one, and two, take what they have inside to write down to heal, because healing goes both ways, for the person that's writing it and for the people that are reading it, so they understand that they are not alone. And that's what I really enjoy doing.
Writing can be so powerful, not only as a cathartic thing for you, for the writer, for us, but for our readers. And I've experienced some of the same things you're talking about. People can be so moved by what you write, by your experiences, by what's going on in your life, that they share commonality with, that they know how it feels to be down and to be losing a battle, and they're fighting every day for a little bit of a ray of hope in their lives. But if you want to in the future now, later on, if you want to know who wrote that comment, I'll be glad to let you know offline, all right, off the air.
I would love.
Because she's an author up in northeastern United States. She's going to be on my show. Really nice lady, good writer, very good author. But anyway, now you mentioned the music thing. So you told me you're going to get into writing maybe some lyrics, right?
I do. I can write the words. I've just, my son, Brian, who's actually at UC Berkeley right now, he's got a full ride there. He's doing wonderful. His writing and philosophy is what he's doing there. That boy can pick up an instrument and play it. Without even thinking about it. He just picks it up and he's an expert at it. I couldn't even play. If I picked up a guitar, it would sound like two cats mating in the back alley. I can't write music. I can't play music for anything. I have these little fat, stubby fingers that just don't want to grab one. And
I couldn't play, and I can't either. Nothing like that.
I played clarinet in high school, and it really sounded so bad.
Get out of here! Get him out of the room! Put that instrument down! Put that.
Right, it's like, what is that noise going on, bro?
Or the register, I can't even play the register, Put that thing down and get out of this room. Hey, now, there's a lady who writes lyrics, who writes also novels, and she writes poetry too. If you want to know her name's Peggy Till, T-E-E-L. She's in Alabama. She's been on my show, and she writes music. In fact, she's got some songs out by some folks, and they're writing a sort of like a music opera right now.
Right.
If you want to reach out, just let me know, Richard.
I'll have to do that, because I think that a lot of my writing can convert to music. In fact, I've been told that by several different. I know a lot of bands and a lot of singers out there that are up and coming and already out there on the scene, which is awesome. The one thing about being an author is you get to meet all kinds of authors, and one of the best things that ever happened to me is I wrote my favorite author, Mac Mahoney, which I read all of his Wingman series when I was 17 years old in Okinawa, Japan, in the Navy. And said, hey, I got my first book published, and he wrote me back saying, that's awesome, thank you for that, and welcome to the House of the Miserable.
I got a master suite in the house of the miserable, Richard. I guarantee you, buddy. I got a lot. Closet. I got a dark laundry room closet or something. Hey, did you know Scott Zelasco Z-Man, the guy up there, the engineer? He's in a kicking band. He's got a great band, and Corey Baby King, who has his own show here, he's got a band.
That's awesome.
This station, they're known for music, so hey. You're talking to like minds now. You don't realize that, but there's a lot of musicians and a lot of entertainers on this station. So Scott's one of them. He's got a great band. I've heard his stuff. Really neat. Okay, so I hope you get in that. You write a novel. You got more poetry coming out. You might get into writing songs, and you write them for your son. Yeah, and man, you got it going on, Richard. I know. I saw your stuff at Amazon, and you're doing well. You're selling. Your poetry's selling, and that's always a good thing, you know.
It is, and I've been blessed by that too. And in fact, this week for next weekend, it's going to be a free weekend for both Out of the Darkness and for the special edition of the Battle Lost Writer's Birth. So if anybody would like to download that, or they could check it out. But again, the Battle Lost Writer's Birth, I've made that free months ago, and it's been in the top 10 for all this time. And it's one of those things where it's got like 4.8 out of 5 stars with about 7. Yeah.
Okay, now, hey, we're going to have to start wrapping it up, but next show's got to come on. So, Richard, it's been a joy having you on. It's been a pleasure, and we've waited so long. This has been a lovely show. Did you know that? It has.
It has. I've
enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed talking to you. It's always fun, and I love it because you're winning your battle, and I hope you get it turned around to where that positive stuff comes flowing out too, which it has it with the love stuff and everything else. But now, next week, let me say this real quick before we have to go. Next week, my guest is from the UK. His name is Russell Edwards, and he's written a book, Richard, called Naming Jack the Ripper.
Really?
He actually proves who Jack the Ripper is, I think.
Wow.
He's going to be on my show next Monday night. Anyway, he said he'll be on, and his name's Russell Edwards, and it's Naming Jack the Ripper. Richard, once again, welcome, buddy. Thanks for being on my show. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me, Ron.
And, folks, Richard M. Knittle Jr. is from and in Texas now. Okay, I got to get myself right here. Hey, Z-Man.
Yes, sir.
Keeping the road, buddy. We'll see you next Monday night, y'all.
Take care, everybody. Thanks, Ron.
Have a good night. Good night, Richard.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.